The twin moons of Vesperia cast long shadows across the royal palace. Queen Zarlethia stood alone on her balcony, her forearms wrapped around herself in a gesture of comfort that brought none. The night air was cool against her blue-tinged skin, but she barely noticed. Her thoughts were far away, traveling across the stars to where her daughter might be. 3 cycles had passed since Princess Alara had left. 3 cycles of silence where there should have been messages. The royal advisors had delivered the news yesterday with lowered eyes and hushed voices. The Imperial battlecruiser Starlight Vengeance had gone silent near the Helios sector. "All hands presumed lost, Your Majesty," came a soft voice from behind her. "The council awaits your decision on the death rites." The queen did not turn to face her attendant. "There will be no death rites, Kyle. Not until I see proof with my own eyes." "But Your Majesty, the traditions demand." "The traditions can wait," the queen snapped, her secondary arms tensing in irritation. "Leave me." When she was alone again, Zarlethia touched the royal pendant at her neck. It was warm, as it had always been since the day Alara was born. In her heart, the queen knew this meant her daughter still lived, despite what logic and evidence suggested. "Where are you, my little star?" she whispered to the night sky. Somewhere in the vastness of space, Lieutenant Peter Mason woke with a splitting headache and the taste of blood in his mouth. Red emergency lights pulsed around him, and warning signals beeped from the small control panel of the escape pod. He tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness forced him back down. "Computer status report," he croaked, his throat dry and sore. "Life support functioning at 70%, came the flat, artificial voice. "Hull integrity stable. Communication. Systems damaged. Location. Unknown." Peter closed his eyes, trying to remember what had happened. The USS Endeavour had been on a routine patrol when the Draconian ships appeared from nowhere. There had been no time to prepare, no time to fight. Back properly, just fire, screams, and the captain's order to abandon ship. A soft groan from nearby made his eyes snap open. He wasn't alone in the pod. In the dim red light, he could make out a figure lying on the floor beside him. It wasn't human. The being was tall and slender, with blue-tinted skin and 4 arms. A Vesperian. Peter had only seen them in briefings and educational videos. The Vesperians kept to themselves, maintaining neutrality in the war between humans and Draconians. So what was one doing on a human military vessel? The alien wore what looked like a military uniform, though not one Peter recognized. There was a symbol on the chest that caught his attention, an intricate design that reminded him of a starburst. Blood seeped from a wound on the Vesperian's side, dark purple against the light fabric. Peter pushed himself up, fighting through the pain and dizziness. He needed to stop that bleeding. The first aid kit was stored beneath his seat, and he pulled it out with shaking hands. "Don't know if human medicine works on you," he muttered as he moved closer to the injured alien. "But I've got to try something." As he reached out to examine the wound, the Vesperian's eyes suddenly opened. All 4 of them. They were a striking violet color with no visible pupils. Before Peter could react, one of the alien's hands shot out and grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "Stay back, human," the Vesperian hissed in perfect English, though with a musical accent that made the words sound almost like singing. "Easy," Peter said, raising his free hand. "I'm just trying to help. You're bleeding." The grip on his wrist tightened. "Why would a Draconian ally help me?" "Draconian ally? Lady, I just lost my ship and probably most of my crew to those lizard bastards. I'm no ally of theirs." The Vesperian's eyes narrowed, studying his face. After a long moment, the grip loosened slightly. "Your vessel was attacked by Draconians?" "Yeah. We were ambushed near the Helios sector. The USS Endeavour. I'm Lieutenant Peter Mason, Earth Alliance Navy." The alien's expression changed subtly. "The Helios sector," they repeated quietly, almost to themselves. Then, with visible reluctance, they released Peter's wrist. "I am Alara. Just Alara. No rank, no last name." Peter didn't push it. Instead, he gestured to her side. "You're hurt. May I?" After a hesitation, Alara nodded. Peter moved carefully, using antiseptic wipes from the kit to clean the wound. It wasn't as deep as he'd feared, but it was still bleeding steadily. "This will sting," he warned before applying a coagulant spray. Alara didn't flinch, though her secondary arms gripped the floor of the pod tightly. "The injury is minor," she said. "Where are we headed?" Peter glanced at the navigation console. The pod's automatic systems were set for the nearest habitable planet when we launched. According to this, we're on course for Nexus 9. Alara's eyes widened slightly. "The trading moon? That is problematic. It's better than floating in space until our oxygen runs out," Peter pointed out as he finished bandaging her wound. "Why problematic?" Alara sat up slowly, her movements graceful despite her injury. She was taller than Peter by at least a foot, even sitting down. Nexus 9 is neutral territory, but it is filled with those who would sell information to the highest bidder. My presence there would be noticed. Peter raised an eyebrow. "And why's that?" "You someone important?" Alara's four eyes blinked in unison. "I am someone who should not be in this sector, just as you should not be." "Well, neither of us planned this little excursion," Peter said with a wry smile. "Look, we're stuck together until we reach solid ground. Maybe we can call a truce until then." The Vesperian studied him for a long moment. "A temporary alliance would be logical," she finally agreed. "But once we reach Nexus 9, I must contact my people immediately." "Same, here. Assuming we can find a working comm system." Peter extended his hand. "So truce?" Alara looked at his outstretched hand with confusion. "What is this gesture?" "It's a handshake. Humans do it when they make agreements." After a moment's hesitation, Alara reached out with her upper right hand and took Peter's. Her skin was cooler than human temperature and smoother. "This is acceptable," she said formally. The pod shuddered suddenly, throwing them both forward. Warning lights flashed across the console. "What's happening?" Alara asked, steadying herself against the wall. Peter pulled himself to the controls. "We're entering the moon's atmosphere earlier than expected, and not smoothly." He tapped several commands into the console. "Brace yourself. This landing is going to be rough." As the escape pod plunged toward the surface of Nexus 9, neither human nor Vesperian realized just how much their lives were about to change, or how their unexpected meeting would eventually reshape the politics of three civilizations. Queen Zarlethia, still standing on her balcony light years away, felt her pendant grow suddenly warmer against her skin. She clutched it tightly, hope flaring in her chest. "Stay safe, my little star," she whispered to the distant sky. "Find your way home." Smoke filled the escape pod as Peter forced the hatch open. He coughed, waving his hand to clear the air. The pod had crashed in a dense jungle, leaving a trail of broken trees and scorched earth behind it. Through the open door, bright sunlight and humid air rushed in. "Can you move?" Peter asked, turning to Alara. The Vesperian princess was struggling to stand, one of her four hands pressed against her injured side. "I am functional," she replied stiffly. Her royal training had taught her never to show weakness, especially not to outsiders. "We should not linger here. The crash will attract attention." Peter grabbed the emergency pack from under his seat. It contained basic survival gear, a small medical kit, and a standard-issue stun pistol. Not much, but better than nothing. "You're right. Can you tell me anything about this place?" "Nexus 9? Alara moved to the hatch, peering out cautiously. "It is a trading moon. Many species come here to exchange goods without the restrictions of their governments. Some are honest. Many are not." Peter followed her gaze. The jungle stretched in all directions, dense and alien. Strange bird-like creatures called in the distance, and the air smelled of sweet flowers and decay. "Any idea which direction we should head?" Alara pointed with her upper right hand. "There is a settlement approximately 20 miles in that direction. It is called Crossroads." 20 miles through this?" Peter gestured at the thick jungle. "That's going to take days." "Then we should begin now," Alara said, starting to climb out of the pod. Peter caught her arm. "Wait. You can't go out there, looking like that." Ilara's four eyes blinked in confusion. Explain. You said yourself that your presence would be noticed. That uniform. Peter gestured to the ornate insignia on her chest. It marks you as someone important, right? For the first time, Ilara looked uncertain. Yes, it identifies me as a member of the royal fleet. Peter suspected there was more to it than that, but he didn't press. Then we need to hide it. Here. He dug through the emergency pack and pulled out a standard-issue jacket. It'll be small on you, but it's better than nothing. Reluctantly, Ilara took the jacket and put it on. The sleeves only reached her elbows and it couldn't close over her chest, but it did cover the insignia. This is adequate, she said, though. She clearly disliked wearing human clothing. They gathered what supplies they could and set off into the jungle. The heat was oppressive, and strange insects buzzed around them. Peter took the lead, using a small knife from the survival kit to clear the densest vegetation. So, Peter said after they'd been walking for an hour in awkward silence, "Want to tell me what a Vesperian was doing on a human ship in a war zone?" Ilara was quiet for so long that Peter thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, she said, "I was not on your ship. I was on the Vesperian cruiser Starlight Vengeance. We were investigating reports of draconian activity in the restricted zone." Investigating? I thought the Vesperians were staying neutral in this war. Officially, yes. Ilara pushed a low-hanging branch out of her way. But there are those of us who believe the draconian threat cannot be ignored. If they defeat the humans, we will be next. Peter stopped and turned to her. So you were on a secret mission? Against your government's orders? Ilara's eyes narrowed. The mission had select approval. That is all you need to know. Before Peter could respond, a sound caught his attention. A low growl coming from the bushes to their right. He slowly reached for his stun pistol. "Don't move," he whispered. The creature that emerged from the undergrowth looked like a cross between a tiger and a lizard. It was the size of a large dog, with scaled skin in patterns of green and black. Yellow eyes fixed on them as it stalked forward, a forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. "Jungle stalker," Ilara whispered. "Very territorial, very dangerous." The creature lunged without warning. Peter fired the stun pistol, but the shot went wide. The beast crashed into him, sending him sprawling. Sharp claws tore at his leg. He cried out in pain, trying to push the animal off. Suddenly, the weight was gone. Ilara had grabbed the stalker with all four of her arms and thrown it several feet away. She stood protectively in front of Peter, her posture shifting to a fighting stance he didn't recognize. When the creature charged again, Ilara moved with surprising speed and grace. She dodged the attack and delivered a precise strike to a spot behind the stalker's head. The beast collapsed, twitching. "You killed it?" Peter asked, clutching his bleeding leg. "No, it is stunned. It will recover in approximately 1 hour." Ilara knelt beside him, examining his wound. "We should move before it wakes. Can you walk?" Peter winced as he tried to stand. "Yeah, but not fast." "Then I will assist you." Without asking permission, Ilara wrapped 2 of her arms around him, supporting his weight. "The settlement is still far. We must find shelter before nightfall." As they moved deeper into the jungle, Peter found himself growing curious about his alien companion. She fought like a trained warrior, not a diplomat or scientist. And that insignia she was so careful to hide. There was more to Ilara than she was telling him. Back on Vesperia, Queen Zarlethia faced the Imperial Council. 12. High-ranking Vesperians sat in a semicircle, their faces showing varying degrees of sympathy and impatience. "Your Majesty," said Councillor Draz, his voice gentle but firm. "It has been 4 cycles since the Starlight Vengeance was lost. The evidence is clear. It is time to perform the death rites and name a new heir." The Queen stood tall, her 4 hands clasped in front of her. "The evidence is not clear, Councillor. There were no bodies recovered, no confirmed destruction of the vessel. The ship's emergency beacon went silent," another councillor pointed out. "All attempts at communication have failed, and the princess was never supposed to be in that sector in the first place." Zarlethia's eyes flashed with anger. "Are you suggesting my daughter's actions were improper, Councillor Vex?" The older Vesperian lowered his gaze. No, Your Majesty, but her presence on that ship was unexpected. The royal fleet is ceremonial, not meant for active combat zones. My daughter understood the threat the Draconians pose better than many in this room, the Queen said coldly. And I say again, until I have proof of her death, there will be no rights and no new heir will be named. The council chambers erupted in whispers. This was unprecedented. Royal succession was governed by strict traditions, and the Queen was breaking them openly. As the session ended, the Queen's most trusted advisor, Tirax, approached her privately. He was older than most of the council. His blue skin faded to a pale lavender with age. Your Majesty, he said quietly, there is something you should know. One of my agents in the Outer Territories has reported a rumor. A Vesperian matching. Princess Ilara's description was seen on Nexus 9. The Queen's heart leapt. When? How certain is this information? 3 days ago. The information is not confirmed, but my source is reliable. Tirax hesitated. There is more. She was reportedly in the company of a human. Queen Zarlethia touched her pendant. It was still warm. Prepare a ship, Tirax. A small one, nothing that would draw attention. Select a crew you trust absolutely. Your Majesty, you cannot be suggesting. I am not suggesting, I am ordering. If my daughter is on Nexus 9, I will find her myself. The council need not know. This is dangerous, Tirax warned. If the Draconians learn of your absence, then we must be swift and discreet. The Queen's eyes, all 4 of them, showed a determination that brooked no argument. My daughter is alive, Tirax, I feel it, and I will bring her home. And I will bring... Night fell quickly on Nexus 9. Peter and Ilara had found shelter in a small cave as darkness closed in around them. Outside, strange creatures called to one another in the jungle gloom. Peter winced as Ilara checked the wounds on his leg. The bleeding had stopped, but the pain remained. The scratches are not deep, she said, but there may be infection. Nexus 9 creatures often carry bacteria harmful to both our species. She opened the medical kit and applied an antiseptic gel to his wounds. Her touch was surprisingly gentle for someone so strong. Thank you, Peter said, for saving me from that thing back there. And for this. He gestured to his leg. Ilara's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, which Peter was beginning to recognize as her version of a shrug. You attempted to help me on the escape pod. I am returning the favor, that is all. Sure, Peter said with a small smile. Just a favor. Nothing to do with basic decency. Ilara paused, studying him. Humans have strange concepts. Peter leaned back against the cave wall. So do Vesperians, from what I hear. All that royal stuff and traditions. Your people are big. On rules, right? Rules maintain order. Order ensures survival. Ilara finished bandaging his leg and moved away, sitting across from him. She stared out at the jungle. But sometimes, rules must bend. Like when you joined that secret mission? Ilara was quiet for a long time. Yes, like then. Peter took a ration bar from the survival pack and broke it in half, offering a piece to Ilara. She hesitated before accepting it. Your nutritional material is compatible with my biology. The emergency rations are designed to be safe for most humanoid species, Peter explained. Might taste awful to you, though. Ilara took a small bite and made a face that almost made Peter laugh. All 4 of her eyes narrowed and her mouth puckered. It is edible, she managed. They ate in silence for a while. The sounds of the jungle filled the space between them. Finally, Peter spoke again. So, any idea what happened to our ships? The Endeavor and your Starlight Vengeance? Ilara's posture stiffened. I believe they were attacked by the same draconian force. A trap, perhaps. They may have detected our investigation. Investigation of what, exactly? Ilara looked at him directly. All 4 of her violet eyes focused on his face. There have been rumors. The Draconians have built a new weapon, one that could tip the balance of this war. We were gathering intelligence. And now both our ships are gone, Peter said grimly. Which means we need to get word back to our people. Fast. Agreed. Once we reach Crossroads, we must find a secure communication device. Peter nodded, and hope there's still someone out there to receive the message. The night grew colder. Peter wrapped his arms around himself, shivering slightly. Without a word, Alara moved closer to him, her body radiating a surprising amount of heat. Vesperians maintain a higher body temperature than humans, she explained when she noticed his surprised expression. It is practical to share warmth. Practical, Peter repeated with a small smile. Of course. As they sat side by side, Peter noticed a small device Alara wore on her wrist. It looked like a bracelet, but with tiny lights that pulsed faintly. What's that? He asked. Alara's hand immediately covered it. Nothing of importance. Doesn't look like nothing. When she didn't respond, he sighed. Look, I get it. Trust is hard to come by, especially between different species. But we're stuck together for now. The more we know about each other, the better our chances. After a moment of consideration, Alara lowered her hand. It is a royal identifier. Every member of the Vesperian royal family wears one. It connects us. Like a tracking device? Not exactly. It is more spiritual in nature. Her fingers traced the delicate patterns on the bracelet. My mother has one as well. It lets her know I am alive. Peter raised his eyebrows. Your mother must be important if she gets royal tech. Alara looked away. Yes, she is important. Before Peter could ask more questions, a sound from outside caught their attention. Voices coming closer. They both tensed, listening carefully. Saw. The crash this way. Could be valuable salvage, said a gruff voice. Or survivors to ransom, replied another. Either way, we get paid. Peter reached for his stun pistol. Alara moved into a defensive position, all four of her arms ready. They exchanged a glance of silent understanding. Whatever their differences, they would face this threat together. On board the small Vesperian ship Twilight Seeker, Queen Zarlethia prepared for the jump to the Nexus system. She had changed her royal robes for simple traveling clothes, though she kept her pendant. No one seeing her now would recognize the Queen of the Vesperian Empire. Your Majesty, said Tirax, entering her quarters with a bow. We are ready to depart. The Council believes you are in seclusion for a traditional mourning period. They will not expect contact for at least 7 cycles. Good. That should give us enough time. The Queen checked the small weapon at her side, making sure it was secure. What is our cover story once we reach Nexus 9? We will pose as traders seeking exotic materials. It is common enough that no one should question our presence. The Queen nodded. And your agent? They are certain they saw my daughter. As certain as one can be from a distance. The description matches, tall even for a Vesperian with the royal markings on her neck. Tirax hesitated. And the human with her was described as wearing what appeared to be an Earth Alliance uniform. The Queen's eyes narrowed. A human military officer. This grows more complex. Indeed. The humans and Draconians have been at war for years. If Princess Alara has allied herself with a human soldier, then she has chosen a side in their conflict, against my direct orders. The Queen's voice was hard, but there was a hint of pride beneath the anger. She always was stubborn, like her mother. A soft chime sounded, indicating the ship was ready for departure. The Queen moved to the viewport, watching as the stars began to blur. Hold on, my daughter, she whispered. I am coming. In the Grand Council chambers on Vesperia, Councillor Vex met secretly with 2 other members of the Imperial Council. The large ornate room was dark except for a single light above their table. The Queen has left the planet, Vex said quietly. Just as I predicted she would. This is dangerous, said Councillor Mira, her voice nervous. If she finds the princess alive, then we proceed with the alternate plan, Vex replied smoothly. Either way, the royal line has shown itself to be too sympathetic to outsiders. The old ways must be preserved. And our other allies? Asked the third counselor. Vex smiled thinly. The Draconians are eager to help us restore Vesperian isolation. Very eager indeed. Once the queen and her daughter are removed, we will have peace again. True peace, without human interference. And if they return with the human soldier, there will be questions. Then we must ensure they do not return at all. Vex's four eyes glinted in the dim light. The Queen's ship can suffer the same unfortunate fate as the Starlight Vengeance, a tragic accident in dangerous territory. The three counselors nodded in agreement, unaware that in the shadows beyond their light, someone was listening, someone loyal to the Queen. Peter held his breath as the scavengers passed by their cave. There were three of them. Two looked like bulky reptilian creatures with scales, and one was small and furry with multiple eyes. All carried weapons. Think they're gone? Peter whispered after the voices faded. Alara tilted her head, listening with senses sharper than human ears. Yes, but they will continue searching at daybreak. We should move before then. In the dark? Through that jungle? I can see well in darkness, Alara said. If you stay close, I will guide you. Peter nodded reluctantly. His legs still hurt, but they couldn't risk being found. They gathered their few supplies and slipped out of the cave. The jungle was transformed at night. Strange plants glowed with soft blue light, and the air was filled with floating particles that sparkled like tiny stars. Alara took his hand with one of her lower arms. Stay close. The path is uneven. They moved slowly through the darkness. Peter stumbled occasionally, but Alara's grip kept him steady. After about an hour of walking, the trees thinned and they could see lights in the distance. Is that Crossroads? Peter asked. Yes. We made better time than expected. Alara paused, studying the distant lights. We should wait until morning to enter. Night brings out dangerous elements in trading posts. They found shelter under a large tree with roots that formed a natural hiding place. As they settled into wait for dawn. Peter noticed Alara looking at her bracelet again. The tiny lights pulsed faster than before. Something wrong with your royal tech? He asked. Alara hesitated. No, the signal is stronger. She looked troubled. This is unexpected. What does it mean? It means... She paused, choosing her words, carefully. It means my mother is closer than she should be. Peter frowned. You think she's looking for you? All the way out here? She would not leave Vesperia without serious cause. Alara's voice was tight with worry. If she has come, then something is very wrong. Dawn broke over Nexus 9, painting the sky in shades of green and purple. The trading post of Crossroads came into full view, a sprawling collection of buildings made from various materials, some looking like they might fall over at any moment. Creatures of all shapes and sizes moved through the streets, trading. Goods and information. Put this on, Alara said, handing Peter a scarf from their survival pack. Cover your alliance markings. The fewer questions about who we are, the better. They entered Crossroads, trying to blend with the crowd. Peter limped slightly from his injury, and Alara kept all four of her arms under the too small human jacket, making her look hunched and uncomfortable. Despite their efforts to remain inconspicuous, they drew curious glances from some of the traders. We need to find a communication station, Peter said quietly, and some food that won't taste like cardboard. There. Alara nodded toward a rusty building with antennas sprouting from its roof. Universal communications, but it will not be cheap. I don't exactly have local currency, Peter admitted. I have something better. Alara discreetly showed him a small gem that glinted from within one of her pockets. Royal emergency funds. As they approached the communications building, Peter suddenly grabbed Alara's arm, pulling her into a narrow space between two shops. What are you? She began. Look, Peter whispered, pointing across the street. Draconians, a group of tall, reptilian beings stood talking to a local trader. They wore black armor with red markings and carried plasma rifles. Military scouts, Alara whispered. They must be searching for survivors from our ships. They're blocking the way to the comm station. We need another plan. Before they could move, one of the Draconians looked in their direction. Its yellow eyes narrowed, and it spoke to its companions. The group began moving toward them. "Run," Peter said, pushing Alara deeper into the alley. "Now!" They hurried through the back passages of Crossroads, the sounds of pursuit close behind them. Peter's injured leg slowed them down, and he could feel the wound beginning to bleed again. "This way." Alara pulled him toward a door with a faded sign. They burst through it and found themselves in what appeared to be a small bar. The few patrons, mostly rough-looking traders and pilots, looked up in surprise. A human woman behind the counter raised her eyebrows. "Private establishment. Members only." "Please," Peter gasped, trying to catch his breath. "We need help. Draconians are after us." The woman's expression changed. "Draconians, huh? That changes things." She looked at Alara with curiosity. "Don't see many Vesperians this far out, especially not with human friends." "We're not exactly friends," Peter said automatically, then caught Alara's eye. "I mean, we're working together." "I'm sure you are," the woman said with a knowing smile. "I'm Greta. This is my place." She moved to the door, locking it and activating some kind of security system. That should keep them out for a while. "We need to contact our people," Alara said. "It's urgent." Greta studied them both. "You military?" "You got that look." Peter hesitated, then nodded. "Earth Alliance Navy. And she's similar." "Thought so." Greta sighed. "Look, I don't get involved in your war. Bad for business, but I don't like Draconians much either. Got a comm unit in the back room you can use. 5 minutes, then you're out of here." "Thank you," Peter said with relief. As Greta led them to the back room, Alara's bracelet suddenly flared brightly. She gasped, clutching her wrist. "What's wrong?" Peter asked. "She's here," Alara whispered, looking around as if expecting someone to appear. "My mother is in Crossroads." Queen Zarlethia moved through the crowded streets of Crossroads, her identity hidden beneath a plain cloak. Tirax walked beside her, equally disguised. They had docked the Twilight Seeker at the outskirts of the trading post, leaving most of the crew with the ship. "My queen," Tirax said quietly. "The signal from the princess's identifier grows stronger. She is near." "I feel it too," the queen replied, touching her pendant. It was almost hot against her skin now. "But something is wrong. The signal is moving erratically. She may be in danger. Our agent reported Draconian presence in Crossroads." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Why would Draconians be interested in a lone Vesperian? Unless they know who she is," Tirax finished grimly. "If they've identified her as royalty, then this is no coincidence." The queen quickened her pace. "Someone has betrayed us, Tirax. Someone wants my daughter found by the wrong people." They turned a corner and saw a commotion ahead. A group of Draconian soldiers were trying to force entry into a building. The door held against their attempts, protected by a security field. "She's in there," the queen said with certainty. "I can feel it." "We are only 2 against many," Tirax warned. "We should return to the ship, bring more guards." "There's no time." Queen Zarlethia reached inside her cloak, withdrawing a small device. "Stand back, old friend." Tirax recognized the royal weapon and stepped away. "Your Majesty, using that will reveal your identity. My daughter's life is worth more than secrecy." The queen's eyes hardened with determination. "And I think it's time the Draconians remembered why Vesperians are feared across the galaxy." A blinding flash of blue light erupted outside Greta's bar. The Draconians attacking the door were thrown backward, their weapons flying from their hands. In the middle of the street stood a figure in a plain cloak, holding a small device that glowed with power. Inside, Alara froze. "Mother," she whispered. Peter looked at her in shock. "Mother? Your mother is—" "We must go. Now." Alara grabbed his arm with 2 of her hands and pulled him toward the door, Greta blocked their path. Are you crazy? There's a battle outside. Let us through, Ilara commanded, her voice suddenly carrying an authority that made Greta step aside without further argument. Outside, the remaining Draconians had regrouped and were firing at the cloaked figure. The shots seemed to hit an invisible barrier around her. Beside the woman stood an older Vesperian, firing a more conventional weapon at the attackers. Queen Zarlethia, one of the Draconians shouted. We found her. Call for backup. Peter stared at Ilara. Queen? Your mother is the Queen of Vesperia? Which makes you... Princess Ilara, she confirmed, her eyes fixed on the battle. And that is why we need to help her. Now. Without waiting for his response, Ilara rushed into the street. Peter hesitated only a moment before following her, drawing his stun pistol. It wasn't much against Draconian armor, but it was better than nothing. Mother! Ilara called out. Queen Zarlethia turned, her 4 eyes widening at the sight of her daughter. Ilara, you're alive. The momentary distraction cost her. A Draconian blast hit the Queen's shoulder, making her stumble. The protective barrier around her flickered. No! Ilara cried, rushing to her mother's side. Peter fired his stun pistol at the nearest Draconian. The blast hit its neck, one of the few unarmored spots. The soldier went down, twitching. Nice shot, human, said the older Vesperian fighting alongside the Queen. Thanks, I'm Peter. Peter Mason. Tire axe. Royal advisor. He fired another shot. We should move. More Draconians will come. Ilara helped her mother stand. The Queen touched her daughter's face with one hand while firing her weapon with another. Knew you were alive? She said softly. I felt it. We need to get back to our ship, Tyrax urged. It's not far. The group began moving through the streets of Crossroads, fighting their way past Draconian patrols. Peter stayed close to Ilara, watching her back. Despite her royal status, she fought with the skill of a trained warrior. So, Peter said between breaths as they ran, you're a princess. That explains a lot. Does it change things? Ilara asked, sounding almost worried. Peter shot a Draconian that appeared in their path. Only makes you more impressive. They reached the outskirts of Crossroads where a small but elegant ship waited. The Twilight Seeker was clearly Vesperian in design, with smooth lines and bluish metal that seemed to shimmer in the light. Quickly, the Queen ordered as the ship's ramp lowered. We must leave before they call in reinforcements. As they boarded, Peter suddenly stopped. Wait, the communication. We never sent the message about the Draconian weapon. What weapon? Queen Zarlethia asked sharply. That's why we were in the Helios sector, Ilara explained as they entered. The ship. The Draconians have built something new, something that could destroy both humans and Vesperians. The Queen's expression grew grave. Tell me everything. The ship lifted off as Ilara explained what they had discovered. The Draconians had created a weapon that could disrupt the neural patterns of both humans and Vesperians, essentially shutting down their brains. They planned to test it on an isolated colony world before using it against major populations. This is why I joined the fleet, Ilara finished. I had to do something. Against my direct orders, the Queen said, but there was no anger in her voice, only a sad understanding. The Council will be furious. The Council cannot be trusted, Tyrax interrupted. He explained what they had discovered, that some Council members were working with the Draconians planning to eliminate both Ilara and her mother. Peter listened to all this with growing concern. So what do we do now? Earth Alliance needs to know about this weapon. The Queen studied him thoughtfully. You saved my daughter's life, Lieutenant Mason. She saved mine too, Peter replied. Several times. Then perhaps this is the beginning of something new. Queen Zarlethia stood, her regal bearing obvious despite her simple clothes and injured shoulder. For too long, Vesperia has remained neutral, believing we could avoid the conflicts of others. But this threat concerns us all. She turned to Tyrax. Set course for Earth Alliance headquarters. Tirax looked shocked. Your Majesty, no Vesperian monarch has ever visited human territory. Then it is long overdue. The Queen's voice was firm. We will warn them about this weapon and offer Vesperian assistance. The Council will see this as treason, Alara said. The Council is compromised, her mother replied. When we return, we will deal with the traitors. But first we must ensure there is a home to return to. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, Peter found himself standing next to Alara at a viewport. The stars streaked by in long lines of light. So, he said quietly, a princess and a lieutenant. Quite a story. Ilara's 4 eyes blinked in that way he now recognized as amusement. Does my rank concern you, Peter Mason? I'm more concerned about what happens when this is over, he admitted. Your people and mine barely know each other, and you'll have duties back home. Yes, she agreed. But this war has shown us that isolation is no longer possible. We need new allies, new... She paused, searching for the right word. Connections. Peter smiled slightly. Is that a diplomatic way of saying you want to stay in touch? Perhaps. One of her hands found his, the touch gentle despite her strength. My mother seems to approve of you, that is, unusual. From across the ship's bridge, Queen Zarlethia watched her daughter with the human officer. She touched her pendant, feeling its warmth. For cycles she had mourned her daughter, believing her lost to the cold emptiness of space. Now Alara had returned, changed by her experiences, stronger in ways the Queen had not expected. And the human by her side, there was something about him that the Queen recognized, a strength that matched her daughter's but different, complementary. Your Majesty, Tirax said quietly, following her gaze. The princess and the human, is that wise? Wisdom and tradition are not always the same, old friend, the Queen replied. Look at them. They have faced death together and emerged stronger. Such bonds are rare. But the Council will adapt or be replaced, the Queen said firmly. Vesperia must change if we are to survive. Perhaps my daughter has found the path forward that I could not see. As the ship carried them toward Earth and an uncertain future, the Queen felt something she had not experienced in many cycles: hope. Her daughter had returned from war, changed but unbroken. And the human by her side might just be the beginning of a new chapter for all their peoples.